All right. So first off, thank you everybody for coming. We have a lot of interesting questions prepared for you today, so hopefully you'll enjoy. I'd like to welcome the panelists. Just come on the stage and then I can introduce you. Iris Shor, head of LinkedIn Israel, formerly founder of Visual Tao, founder of Orivi. Sagit Idali, founder of Perimeter 81. Amir Orad, CEO and founder of SciSense, and Adisha Arabani, CTO of Sneak and formerly CEO and co-founder of SkyQ. I stole your chair. All right. Man, as a VC, it's incredible to sort of speak to these people because all I can think of is if I could build a megazord based off all your knowledge and experience, I would totally fund that. So this is the only thing I can think of now. So first off, I'd like to start with how many people in this audience are or were or are going to be founders? Raise your hands. All right. So you're the right audience for what we're about to talk about. So let's kick off. Product market fit. Is it real? Is it an absolute thing? Can any of you claim, yes, I have it? Or is it sort of a moving target? Starting from you, Adi.
First of all, I don't think maybe I'll separate what I would say up until a year ago, not what I said now, what I would say now after being in Sneak. In general, I believe that there is no such thing as product market fit. There is such process, and the process is associated with combining the understanding of who are the people or the target audience of what you're trying to sell. What is the set of capabilities you're trying to build for them, and the go-to-market that is attached to those, combining them together. And the process of product market fit is a process where you constantly iterate on improving all three aspects: your understanding of the customer, the set of features that you're building. And I think that once you get to a point where you feel that there is a machine that is just driving, and the work that you are required to do now is more on fixing the knobs or kind of adjusting them rather than building new main blocks, then potentially you're in this chasm of being in a good spot in that sense. But I'm looking at a company like Sneak, and it's the first time in my life I haven't been at a company that had such large scale of business in hyper growth. And maybe over there it's the first time I've seen something that we can say we're a product market fit, but only on some products, not on all of them, right? And only in some areas, and only in some markets, and only in some territories, and only in some segments. And that work kind of never ends. And I think that even in those areas where we feel so confident, next year we might not. So that process has to stay.
So you're actually saying that you founded a startup, exited it without product market fit?
Oh, definitely.
Amazing. So do we even need product market fit? I'll say
we have to have that, but I'll let some of the other panelists talk. But it's a process. Again, it's not a thing. It's not, and you have to have that in your mind from the first day of establishing the company.
Stagi, do you agree?
So with most of the things, I think that product market fit is a moving target, as you said. If it's good for the first year, it might won't be good for the next year. What happened to Nokia when the iPhone came and arrived? What happened now to Checkpoint, Cisco, Palo Alto when we did the shift to the cloud? We need to adapt. We need to find new ways for different solutions. So for us, I'm coming from with the SaaS experience, both B2C and B2B, and I've been in it for the two different companies. And it was a huge challenge to find every time the product market fit. So in the first year for my current company, P81, it was working, and we found the product market fit for the first year with 300 paying customers. But when COVID arrived, it did a huge shift, a huge change. For us, it was a good thing. It did a very high acceleration, very fast acceleration for the company. But many other companies had to redefine their purpose. For example, in the conferences industry, they need to find a different solution for the hybrid workforce. So you need to work very hard to find again and again and again your product market fit.
Okay, Iris, maybe you'll disagree. You have also a vast experience from very different companies in very different industries.
Yeah, so I pretty much agree. I would say that I think that for most companies, most of the time, the product is doing okay. So it's not a disaster. You don't need to pivot, but it's not doing amazingly well. You can easily sell it to anyone. By the way, it's really, really hard to understand if you're like 4 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And for me, I think that this term is mainly like a North Star. So it's mainly like a language for all employees and investors to push harder to get to a better product. And I completely agree with the idea that you can build a great company having a product that is like 7 out of 10, but you should always improve it. And I think that this term, people already, like the people had amazing products before people start using product market fit, but this really helps us to push more, and I'll be happy to find like equivalent terms for technology, marketing, and so on. So just for something to really click and to really, really work well. And yeah, it's a moving target and it changes all the time.
Okay, so maybe actually, Amir, from your perspective, being at SciSense, for the time that you have been, do you recall maybe a point in time where you said, this is it, and everything changed? Or do you agree that it's constantly moving, constantly changing, and you can't pinpoint that?
So first, it's changing all the time. And if you don't see it, you're blind because it's changing. Second, just before I talk about your question, I believe there's 2 pitfalls with product market fit, which is overfitting, which, like machine learning, you can overfit the model. You can overfit a product to a specific large client paying you a shitload of money, and it can break the company. That's really dangerous. And then product market fits, which is when 2 markets are in love with your product. And if you don't choose, you end up being defocused. So to me, those are 2 pitfalls that are quite dangerous when you build a company. And yeah, a good example in SciSense, we've built an analytics engine, which works extremely well about 5-10 years ago when databases were really slow. Okay, so we built a really good acceleration tool that had a perfect product market fit. And then BigQuery, Redshift, we're in AWS, Redshift, Snowflake came out, and suddenly you have to realize that you may not need that extra acceleration technology and invest in using and leveraging those tools. And the other pitfall is you can be in love with your own technology and blind to the fact the market changed. So those are moments that are kind of watershed moments. And if you don't see them, it's very painful.
So a question for the floor. They're searching for product market fit. They're doing what you did. Now, what should they do with the outside world? So let's say competition, for example. Is looking at competitive landscape a part of product market fit? Do you start there? Do you finish there? Do you constantly update it? How did you think about competition? Or in your case, I'd say, vertical integration or ecosystem components which are changing around you, especially if you're doing infrastructure, right? In your process of searching for product market fit.
So maybe just to finish what I said, in my view, it's not about competition at all. It's about customers, and more customers. Just talk to them all the time and ask why. They'll tell you it's a great product. Why is it a great product? They'll tell you it solves this problem. Why is it an important problem? They'll tell you it's important. What's more important than that problem? Like, go deep all the time. It's the only way I found.
I think you really need to understand the type of business you're trying to build. So if you're trying to disrupt a current existing business, you really need to understand the dynamics, what works, what doesn't work, how the current competitors are approaching the market, and innovate not just on the technology and product you're building, but also on the way you are delivering it. So as an example, Snyk has been in the application security space, which existed for many, many years. I've been in this space from 2004. And in the past, we always try to get to developers. And what Watchfire, a company I worked at, and many others did wrong was to try to take those security tools, sell them to the security people, and try to get developers bought into that mission. But that didn't work because there were security tools, there were not developer tools. What Snyk did is understand this market, understand the competitors, understand the landscape, and build a different product with a different go-to-market motion, leveraging those developers much more from the get-go. And I think that when we're looking at competition, when we're talking to customers, a lot of times we have a bias of trying to solve a tactic problem rather than coming up with a transformational go-to-market fit, right? And I'm talking about go-to-market fit because that's the biggest thing I think startups in Israel don't fully get. They're trying to optimize for the product, and not from the entire experience of how you're getting that to the customers.
It's interesting you give that example, because Sneak is also a company that when started, most investors looked at it and say that won't work because developers don't buy security. And as an investor, it's very, very hard for us to see exactly what will be product market fit and what's going to work, because it's either not going to work because some historic truth X, Y, Z that blah, 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 whatever VC say. Or on the other hand, you say it's obvious. Of course, Sisense will do it. LinkedIn will do it, right? There's always, you've heard this, why wouldn't Amazon do it? I mean, geez, Amazon, right, can do everything. And it's very, very hard, even for us obsessed with looking at where we can find product market fit, to identify it. So, and we're the listeners, we're not the doers. So I was wondering here, from all the founders, who has defined product market fit team in the organization? Show of hands. 1, 2, only 2 people. And I think everybody agrees here that this is the most important thing. So when we build teams at Seed, maybe Sagid, because of your switch from Seifel, it's also very interesting. Do we build product, engineering, sales, executive, backend, or should we build customer, product? How do you build a team for product market fit? And how does that differ from a team that scales like you're trying to do right now?
Yeah, I think it depends on the phase of the company. At the beginning, it was mainly Amit, my co-founder, and myself, talking with the customers. I agree about that approach, that you need to talk with the customers a lot. You need to understand the needs, you need to understand the gaps. And this is like, there are many different touch points that helps you to understand like what will be your product market fit. So we did it like both in the consumer phase, in the consumer company and this company, talking with the customers, and also about your previous comment about building something different. You don't need to build something which is better. You need something which is different. There are like many different companies that have many different advantages or differentiators. So this is like a very important point.
No, I wanted to challenge the talk to the customer thing. You know, we always talk about talk to the customer. And how many of you want to build a company that is product-led growth? Raise your hand. And how many of you are going to build a company that is top-down in its sales process? Raise your hand. How many are going to build companies that don't want to sell anything? I think it's really important to understand what type of go-to-market motion you're trying to build. I've been seeing a lot of startups these days that all talk about PLG motion, and they say, yeah, we are a PLG company because it's cool and whatever, right? But at the end of the day, they don't act like that. If you're a PLG company and you're focused on working on your product with designers and you'll, expose it to the public later on and so on, then you're doing something really, really wrong. And if you're relying on too much interactions with one specific or 5, 10 specific customers, you're doing it wrong. Because when you're trying to build a PLG motion, you want to look at the data as the driver of decision-making process, and you want to build your company, the DNA of it, to rely on that data. If you're a top-down company, go and talk to as much customers as you can directly, and always differentiate between talking to the buyer and talking to the user, which are not always the same, but we can relate to that later.
But why only top-down, bottom up as well?
So I think that when you're looking at your funnel, when you're doing a bottom up, it means that the number of interaction points you have, and when you're going to consumers, it's kind of an extreme in a sense. The top of the funnel, you have much more companies, and as you're building the company, you need to be focused on building the funnel and all stages of it. And if you're talking to only X number of customers you can talk to, and you're trying to build a PLG motion, as an example, you just get biased. You don't really understand what really drives large population of organizations to do. I'll give you an example. In Sneak, when we started, the beginning was, let's build a crappy product, but build the full experience. Let's just get out there. It was depth first. Let's focus on your Node.js, scanning for that. And after one very successful year, we got around tens of thousands of users, which is great. No revenues, zero. Not even a path for revenues. Like There wasn't any option to sell. And then we said, okay, let's now add some capabilities. We saw that users were churning and we had a lot of problems. And then we realized that we need to build some product features like integration with Git to allow them to stay there and to constantly scan their results. And that was a huge success because we got customers to use us, but they didn't pay. And then we realized that the buyer was not the developers. Developers loved it, but they were not willing to pay themselves at the time, at least. And we need to see how we can build the features for the security team. If you would, and then we build that, and then kind of the real success came. And it only 2 years later. If you would talk to customers in the first place, they would be the security people because they would be the one that matters. So it seems like we would cut a lot of corners. We just get there. But we would not have built a product that is differentiation. It would not have built the PLG motion that we wanted to build, and that would just not work.
So it's talking with the right persona. That's what you're saying.
I think it's understand how you talk. So in when you're doing consumer, when you're doing PLG, you want to make sure that the type of interaction you have with the customers is you learn by the product. You make sure that the DNA of the entire company is to learn from those type of interactions. Obviously, you want to interview people. Obviously, it's important, but the way you measure your business, the way you adapt it, when you change what you are focused on, I think is how you think it will be in the future and start to build that strength, that muscle in the company from the first day.
I think this discussion, so we've been asked to make it interesting here. I think this discussion is a great reminder that there is no one way to do it. You cannot disagree because those are not conflicting approaches. It really depends on your skill set as a founder, data-driven, developer-led, or you're really good talking to clients. On the market, is this a new market or an existing market? Are you disrupting or creating a market? It depends so much. In general, whatever we say here, half of it is irrelevant for you. And your job is to pick the right half for your right point in time, markets, etc. So we cannot disagree because it's all valid. And her company was different than my company, and they're both legit ways to do it, with 10 other legit ways to do it.
I disagree. I'm kidding.
Great.
But do any of you recall specifically, let's say, adding engineers to the discovery? So obviously, if you're doing a PLG, you may not talk to anybody. You're looking at Mixpanel. But if you're doing B2B, top down, and you're calling, did any of you add engineering to those calls?
Well, we did.
Why?
Engineering, marketing, sales, everyone.
Everyone.
In some, for some extent. I do think like they contribute for it, but mainly I really wanted the entire company to be very product oriented. And once you tell someone that you're only in charge of engineering and you're not in charge of how much the company is going to succeed, then that's the state of mind that they're going to work at. So I think something that really worked very well for us at Uribi is to have everyone think about the product and to have everyone feel eligible for the company success. And if they're not part of the table that makes these decisions, they won't feel this way.
And do you think that there is a big delta between having them seeing the gong or the chorus, the recording of the calls versus being on the call and maybe asking a question?
Definitely, yeah.
Who here brought engineers on customer calls? Show of hands. Interesting. Who here brought engineers to every customer call when in discovery? Like as a rule? One. Very interesting. Maybe we should all do that. Three calls. All right. So there's an interesting saying, right? Pivot or persevere. We've all heard it. By the way, who here has pivoted in the past? Okay. So you were all faced with this dilemma, and I'm sure you were all I know that you were faced this dilemma as well. The problem is when you're good, because when you're bad, you just fail. It's an easy decision. And when you're awesome, it's also an easy decision. The problem is when it's some like it, some don't. You got to customers, but they're Israeli. You can't get across the chasm to America. There is product market fit, but only to a certain subset of features. How did you decide? And what did you decide, if you can share from your experience in your companies by order, pivot or persevere?
So I'll give you a real example. So as you said, if you have a failing product, it's easy because perseverance, there's a limit, there's a cash limit at the end. But here's a real example of a challenge we had at Sisense and what we did. We had an analytics platform and we found over time there's literally two very different realities. Some use it internally to run their business, and some are starting to embed it into their development teams, into their products, and make it part of their go-to-market and their own product. And we had a big choice to make. Do we keep serving two markets and be okay in both? Do we pick one and try to be the best at it and sacrifice the other slowly? And you can call it a good problem, but it is as big of a challenge as any other challenge. And we made a tough choice, which I think is the only choice as a startup. You have to focus. And when you have two kids and you have to pick which one to invest in, it's really, they're both your babies, you love both, you have to pick one. And we picked one. And that was a conscious decision. And the challenge is you have, at that point, a few hundred employees, they're in love with both approaches. You have customers in both sides. So that's an example of a pivot or a really strong focus at the expense of something else. Had we not done that, we would never be the best at one thing you do. And I think as a startup and go into product market fit, your only job is to be the best at one thing, just to be okay at many things.
So I'll give another example. In SkyCure, we were focused on mobile security. And as we built the company, we realized that these devices were more locked down. So the way we did security on Windows and Mac are not the same. So we built some concepts and we found some hacky ways to do awesome stuff on iPhone as well, which was important for us. And then we got our first pilot. It was with a company called Ceragon, Israeli. And that was like a total failure. And the reason it was a failure was that it started great. And then Apple created an updated version. And Apple had a bug. And the bug in Apple is a bug that wasn't very, you would not notice it unless you would really use those features in those hacky ways as we did. And obviously the customer was affected. The customer doesn't care if it's a bug with us or Apple, of course, right? And that was really challenging. And we really asked ourselves, what are we doing now? We started to talk to Apple. We understood that there is no one to talk to, of course. And I remember that was really, really tough few weeks where, the whole premise of how we would build a company is kind of, it's an earthquake. And we did lots of work on trying to find it on one path, to find the solution this way in one path, and find alternatives in another path. And those alternatives, the discussions went to, let's do things that are completely out of the realm of what we're here for. And also, Yair, my co-founder, and I were like, what are we doing with, we have funding, do we take it back? What do we do with the employees, the vision, the customer? It was tough. And as part of that, we didn't really pivot, but that was a critical moment in the company because something changed in our DNA. And what changed was that we said, okay, from now on, we are only doing things as Apple and Google would love us to do. Not would be okay with it, but would love us. And we'll try to really, really shift the focus in running in those environments under the set of rules in those environments, not try to be Israelis and, cut corners and figure out ways. And out of that came up one of our strongest patents that essentially provides security while preserving the privacy of the user, that became our biggest differentiator in the market and became one of the biggest reasons for our success. And I think that those challenges, as you find them, a lot of times as founders, it's heavy, it's tough. But you need to remember that as you figure out a way through those, you're actually building the strength of your company, both in terms of resiliency, the DNA of the company, but also in terms of the right motions that will drive you to success. So just remember that these are really opportunities, I'm not just saying that. No.
Yeah, I would say +1 to focus. As I mentioned before, I think the hardest thing is that in most cases, the product is doing okay. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. You don't need to pivot. And I think the worst thing is to try to add more features. And because you don't want to pivot, but you think maybe if I'll add the reports and then add user management and someone asked for this feature, maybe this is going to click.
Of course they're not using, there's no share button.
Yeah, and And it's super tempting because you say, okay, just a share button, it's going to take 1 week of work, and then we're going to see, maybe it's going to change something. And I know for me, it's always like a hard decision because there's something that is so easy to do, and it's only going to take us like 3 days. And I really learned that everything that takes one week or so is always something that you need to maintain later, and then the application becomes more complex. And I think there was like an entire year, maybe a year and a half at Oribi, that we just polished the existing features. So there was rule of like nothing new, and better UX, better technology, better performance, and better marketing around these features. And it just worked. So having exactly the same set of features, but much better, and we saw less churn and more engagement. And so I would say like my main tip is pick one. So either like do much more with what you have today without trying to add more features, or pivot.
I would add that if you're at a point where you need to focus, you realize that you need to choose your strategy, where to focus and so on, try to do an opposite exercise. Say, what are you not going to do? It's a very important exercise. And I think that always drives better results in terms of focus. Most people can't really, find it very hard to cut, make strategic decisions. And the notion of not doing is key for me, at least.
Yeah, I want to add. So +1 for focus as well, but also don't get in love with your product. Sometimes you need to get like the hard decisions. Not working? Told you. You heard me. So for me, I think it wasn't like you can call it like a pivot. It's more kind of like a spin-off. So we had 2 companies that we managed at the same time. One was B2C, the other one was B2B. And at the end, the first company that we started, it was a commodity, and the product itself, it was a VPN for consumers. It was a cash cow, it was profitable, but we saw a huge opportunity in the B2B market, the cybersecurity, and it was kind of like my dream of myself and my co-founder to do basically a disruption in a whole new market. We called it the shift from Nokia to the iPhone. And this was like the move to the cloud of networking and security solutions. So at the end, we had to take like a very tough decision. We couldn't operate the two companies. And you have like the mind and you have the heart. The heart wants to stay like with the first company, but the mind is like very rational. You collect the data, you understand the market, you understand the TAM, and you need to take the decision. And we decided, we also heard from our customers in the first company, we had like 100K paying customers, consumer ones, but we saw the 2 trends in the market. We saw the shift to the cloud. We saw the digital nomads, people that are working from everywhere. So why? It's not like a site-centric approach anymore. So we need to do the shift to the user. So we saw that, and we heard that from the customer, from the analysts, and etc. And we took a decision to kill the first company and do the shift, the transition, and build Perimeter 81, which at the end was, at the beginning, it was very risky, but at the end, it was very successful decision.
This is mind-blowing to me, because when you talk about pivot versus persevere, there's always like a very, man with a sword saying the right or left. But what we heard now is there are other paths, right? I mean, Eri's talking about polishing. So I think this is now, I'm stealing that TM, pivot, persevere, or polish. And maybe you don't need to pivot, and maybe you don't need to persevere chasing the feature set and the improvements, the marginal improvements you're trying to do. Maybe just look at what you have, what really works, and triple down on that to make it better, and you'll see actual change. And Adi's talking about essentially an architecture change, almost a culture change of, we didn't change the company, we didn't change the technology, we didn't change the customer, we didn't even change the go-to-market, but we decided we're architecturing our platform in a way that is collaborative with the larger platform that we are sitting upon, which is a strategic decision. So pivoting versus persevering might have many, many meanings, and that might be part of the challenge. So I challenge all of you to ask more questions on what exactly should you be doing, and not try and fall into one or two. Lastly, Sagi, I have to ask, because I remember that conversation where we discussed Safer VPN versus Parameter 81. Just for the audience, they built a bootstrapped, successful B2C VPN company that was doing really well. And then they saw sort of what is now SaaS, right? And said, okay, this is a big opportunity. What should we do? And the discussion was, to me, they were asking me, I remember, do you think we should keep Safer inside and do both, or should we spin it out and sell it? And I remember the clarity of mind that you and Amit had about the new thing, and that the focus is there. That was decision one. It was very clear to them. That's the focus. And then it was all tactical, and it worked out beautifully. So I think once you have the right focus and you know what's important and you know where you're going, the rest, if you're capable and talented, which you should be, because you're invited to this event, then it will fall into place. I want to touch on pricing. So by the way, who here has read Lean Startup? Okay, pretty much everyone. Who here has read The 4 Steps to the Epiphany? Opa! It's a bit longer. So the 4 steps is like the full-scale Bible. Super complicated, technical reading. If you're doing a startup, I highly recommend, but it's reading with a pen and paper. And in the 4 steps, it's essentially trying to break down and analyzing exactly how you do product market fit. If you do product market fit with my book, you'll get it. That's the play, at least. And they talk there about pricing. They talk there about always selling, no free. Oh, B2B, obviously, top down. But always be selling, always try and charge, because if a customer doesn't want to pay for something, he's not going to put in the amount of work and you might not get the feedback. So let's take that as an axiom. That's correct. You want to price. How do you price? How do you price your product in the beginning where you have no clue? And if you're differentiated enough, you have no comparable.
Yeah, for me, it was like a kind of a hunch and backed up with data. So at the beginning, it was the consumer was like that. I will try. So one day we decided, okay, let's do like a 20% increase and see what's happened. And it worked. I mean, the conversion rate didn't change. So we got more money. So it was a very successful thing. Now when the company is going, we're doing it's a different sales cycles. We need to consider many other things. We're taking like a more thorough process. So we're understanding what's happening in the market. We're understanding different touch points. We sending surveys to the customers, but at the end, pricing is a powerful tool to segment your market, segment the customers, bring the right customers. It's how you do feature segmentation. How do you create cluster for different company sizes? So we have like plans for the enterprise, plan for the small, the SMBs, as we sell from SMBs to large organizations. And we see how it works brilliantly when we do that. And it's also about psychology, when you can do anchoring and basically increase the price by doing choosing the right and intelligent pricing strategy. We managed to increase the price, for example, for the enterprise plan by 30%, the average price per user, by adding another package that will be in the middle and we'll do like a new anchoring for the customer. So it's I think it's kind of like an art to do it right, but it can bring like very immediate impact and amazing results.
Only 2 things to add. First, when I look at pricing, there's 2 dimensions. There's the unit you choose, the metric you choose, and the amount. People don't think about the metric enough, in my view. And if you can tie it to value, you don't just have to go to users, which is kind of the default. Splunk is using data because that's the value. The more data, the more value they add. Now they're changing a bit. We have some customers that we price by the number of their clients because we know we can help them land more customers. They get paid more, and we'll get a bit of that. So think about the unit you choose as a vector, a proxy for value. If you can attach to the value they see, it's really material. Second, just on the price increase, the easiest way to grow a company is to raise the price. It's crazy. You raise by 10%, you just grew by 10% de facto, if people agree with that. And my experience is you raise and raise and raise until they stop you. The market will stop you at the right place. And as a founder, I was always terrified what will happen. And worst case, they say no. Okay, so we can always go down again. But raise the price until it stops. Then you go to segmentation, etc. But usually you start low, you add value, You can charge more. If there is value, people will pay. If there's no value, they won't pay.
I strongly agree with your first note on the value. And I think discussion around pricing is discussion around value. And hence you have to do it with the people who are, you're consulting with on building it, whether it's your design partners or, your customers via like just try it, right? And do the tests. But it's much easier to reduce the price in the market than to increase it. So in the early days, if you are a top-down company, at the end of the day, you need your customers, you need to align to their budget. The first customers are essentially investors in your company. And so that's kind of an easier discussion. It's not really a discussion around pricing. But as the company grows and your pricing becomes public, whether you publicize it or not, it's much, much harder to increase it. And so you really not want to have an honest discussion with yourself on what is the value that you are bringing to the organization and how do you measure that. And as you're doing that, you also improve your so-called product market fit, because as part of your process and operation, you will build it in a way that will demonstrate that value to the customer. So that pricing discussion will also be easier with the customers. But be careful. I think that in many businesses, after they reach like the tens of millions of dollars and they realize that the pricing might not be accurate, increasing it by 10-20% is easy. Increasing it by 200%, it's by 100% is much, much harder, even if you're doing it in phases.
So another key takeaway here: pricing equals value in the beginning. So when you think about your pricing, think about the value, and maybe sort of it's more like the business model, right? Like, what do you tie revenue to? Has any of you ever had a instance where pricing really changed your product market fit or helped you get there or steered you away from it? That was like a key element. So there's a company, an Israeli company. Yeah, do you have an example?
No, I have an example. My first company, it's Toyota. We built an anti-phishing product. I don't know if you even recall the days. This was like a long time ago. But we, again, thought about value. Instead of as people paying us per hour for like the effort we do to bring down phishing attacks, we measured how many sites or attacks we can actually solve. So imagine an antivirus charging by the virus you find. That's real value, right? Obviously, if you find the virus, there's value. And that kind of flipped the script. And it's obvious someone will pay you if you take down an attack. It's obvious. And if you don't take one, you didn't do anything and they don't have to pay you. So it's a win-win. And that totally changed. Obviously, everyone will sign a contract saying per attack we'll pay you to take it down. And if there isn't any, we'll pay you nothing. Luckily, there's many attacks. So it works well. But that's an example of you can literally change the script and open a new market.
So again, you didn't change the product. You didn't change the customer. You just changed the way you charge, and you felt a massive difference. So that is amazing to me in the quest for product market fit, because it doesn't have to be 3 months or 6 months or 9 months of hard work, right? It could be a one very, very, very good idea. There's an Israeli company. Now, I don't know if this is 100% true, but I did hear it from somebody who was the CMO there, called Mazo Botica, that sold robots to hospitals that conduct surgery. Has anybody heard of that? Okay, so I at least heard that the company had a hard time. What startup has a hard time, right? And couldn't sell, because they were trying to sell the robot for, let's say, I can't remember, right? $100,000 or whatever it is. And they couldn't sell. And then they did one thing with pricing, and boom, shot through the roof, exit of 1 point whatever billion to Medtronic. Does anybody want to guess what that change was?
Per surgery.
It's robots for surgery, yes.
No, they charge per surgery.
No, it's an interesting idea. I'll share that, but successful. I don't know. They raised the price of the robot by 1,000% to $1 million. That is what they did. And when the robot cost $1 million, apparently you need a board to approve it. And the board likes robots. Now, again, I'm obviously taking this to the extreme because we're on a panel and I want you to be interested. But I think that pricing and pricing strategy might play a more crucial role than we all think in the success of your companies. Now, Lastly, I am a VC, so I will ask about VCs. What we're seeing today, especially in certain sectors, that VCs are very much involved in the ideation process and in trying to find product market fit. Many founders come to us and say, hey, we want to do a company. Can you sort of point us to the right direction so we don't waste 5 years and all of your money? And in some areas, there's a playbook already, right? In security, you call the CISOs and you get the feedback, and then you see what those guys invested in, and you do that again. And there's sort of this way that VCs are involved. Do you think that that's a good thing, a bad thing? Do you recommend that these founders leverage VCs to find product market fit? If so, how? If not, why? Let's fight.
So first of all, shout out to you and Adi and the team in that tree, because you're really doing a great job on that. And in general, yes. Okay, so you should talk to anyone and be very open and kind of raise the ideas with friends, even with everyone in the market, potential customers, potential partners. But you also need to have the confidence to know that you're the founders, and it's okay for you to disagree with all of those people that have massive years of experience and so on. Because if you're going to do something disruptive, and I hope that every one of you feels that they're going to do something disruptive, it means that it's going to be different. And if it's going to be different, it's not just the product, it's everything around it. And so everything you hear in this panel or one-on-ones, you need to take it with a grain of salt. It's just input, and you process that, and you make your output. And if there is a VC that doesn't understand that, don't get money from them if you have other options. Okay? Because you want VCs that have strong opinions, that can give their opinions, that you can brainstorm with, and accept the fact that you run the company. Sorry if
yeah, I'll add that like everyone, I agree pricing is critical. And one thing that I did after my last round, which was about 2 years ago, is contacting, I think I spoke with about 15 companies like HubSpot and Intercom and Full Story. It took me a while to get to the right person that was really in charge of pricing. And I just told them, like, we're going to really change your pricing model. What are your tips? What worked for you? What didn't work? It was a lot of work to get to like the exact person that really worked on the pricing, but it was priceless. So for example, like one thing that I learned is that is to keep it simple. Like everybody told me every time we try to build a pricing model based on data or based on how much you use the product, it was a nightmare for the accounting and for the CS, and it was really hard to predict how the company will do. And so I think you should interact with your VCs about it, but you should come very prepared. So because everybody can say, oh, okay, let's charge based on data. It sounds like a great idea. Yeah. So there are lots of great ideas that you have like on the board meetings, and they think that you should do your homework before and then discuss it.
Yeah, I like your motto, keep it simple. It's great. And it's also about trust between the founder and the investor, that you will take the right decision and you know what's best for the company. We're talking a lot with our investors as consultants. We're getting the benchmark. They have like many different hundreds of portfolio companies in SaaS, like SaaS companies for many different verticals. So we like to get the data, the benchmarks. We're like very data-centric company. So we get valuable insights. But when it gets to the decision, it's me and my co-founder and the rest of the team of the company, the management, and the employees. So we're collecting all the data and the inputs, but we need to take a decision that will be like the best for the company. And as you said, we will know it the best.
Yeah, just two more thoughts. First, I fully agree. Boards, VCs, great advisors should decide when you ignore them and when you listen to them very carefully. And they need to respect that, otherwise it doesn't work. The one source I found of great value that is underappreciated is peers. Talk to other people that are doing the same thing in a similar stage or have been at a similar stage. They'll make time, especially at conferences on the side, etc. And you can get a lot of value. People share much more than you would imagine if you just ask. I recall one day I called literally Dev, the CEO of MongoDB, and asked, for 20 minutes, and he gave me 20 minutes. And those 20 minutes were really relevant when you work with the data ecosystem as an example. Initially, I didn't have the guts to call him, but once I did, he answered. So people in your space as long as you're polite and kind of, try enough times, you'll get answers and very usually good, good advice.
I remember when I started doing VC, and I said, okay, I started to read online, what do you do as a VC, obviously. And then everybody just said, you learn by doing. And I said, well, fuck that. I need to learn. I can't just wait. And I sent messages to like all the GPs, all the VCs in the world, whoever is agreeing to meet with me or talk to me. And I remember actually until this day, some of the things that these people told me. And so +1 on that advice, the world is flat. Reach out. People answer. And if 98 don't answer, but 2 answer, and one of them is the freaking CEO of Mongo, then you're going to be way more smarter than you are today. And it works for VCs as well as founders, apparently. Yes?
Yeah, I just want to tell that it's easier than it seems. Like, even for example, I got to LinkedIn pretty much with like a pretty, like, I would say like cold intro, but it's really possible. Like, if you know how to write good emails and you have a good reason, it's not just like give me tips, like I want to start something. And for example, like what I shared about the pricing, it was hard to get to these people, but I really explained to them that we're at a tipping point. We really need exactly like your specific knowledge, and people share and people help.
So craft the messaging. Invest in how you reach out. Don't just send a LinkedIn message, say, hey, X, I would love to learn about the industry from you, blah, blah. But you'll get it. Now, lastly, before we move to questions and answers, just a sort of pulse check. Who here has a question? Okay, so we have questions. That's all. So lastly, before we move on to questions, last piece of advice. What can you share to this room of very talented, soon-to-be founders who hopefully in 5 to 10 years will be sitting on this panel with another set of people? How can you share a tip that will make sure they get there faster and without too much pain?
Good question. I think the most important aspect is be thoughtful, constantly feedback yourself, like what am I doing wrong, where I can be better, and constantly change. Like you always, like I'm a paranoid in general. Like I always like, well, okay, what else? So where will we be challenged? What will happen next week? Okay, how can we do that better? How can we excel more? How can we grow more? What can we do? Who will attack us? Who will be against us? Why would the customers fail? Why would they not renew? Like constantly be a little bit paranoid, because that allows you to better anticipate the things that are going. And in the worst case, you just grow faster than you want. So.
Yeah, so for us, it's you need to be responsive, you need to adapt, you need to do it very quick. What helps us, it's collecting the data, understanding the different touch points, different data points. We are freaks, so we like collecting and testing and parsing like every different touch point with customers, with analysts, with investors, and we understand like what's going on in the market and what's changing. And we keep like the trends and see what's going on. So that's like my tip and advice.
So a while ago, I started working on a book about the mental aspect of entrepreneurship. So that's something that really keeps me busy. And with it, I think like it's super interesting that like you measure everything, you know exactly how the company is performing at every level. But no one knows if the CEO is losing it, and as they usually do. So, I would just say, like, give it some space, even if I think like it's very common to speak with peers about marketing and pricing and how hard it is to find employees and so on. But it's really, really hard journey for everybody. So just like find the right peers and friends to speak with them about it, just to acknowledge that this is also a very important part of building a good company. +5 on the last one. It is the starting a company and building one. It's probably the most exciting, shittiest job ever. And there'll be moments you won't believe that you can do it. And there'll be many moments others will tell you that you cannot do it. And there'll be moments that are right and you have to change. And it's very hard. And I've seen too many people that aspect, were not prepared for that aspect. If you think about all this, the other stuff, the financial sacrifice, the risks, etc. It is hard. And that's why, there's not many people that do that and do that again and again.
So you just have to come ready for that. And maybe you don't want to do it. And that's also okay. Then doing it and coming not ready into that. Then the only other thing, reinvent yourself all the time. All the time. It's ridiculous how many times you have to do it. Even after success, because success is only another opportunity to fail if you don't adjust and reinvent yourself again and again.
Every time you think you got it,
Yeah.
everything changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Do
crazy.
you, so this is, before we move to Q&A, this is something, I just had a founder that signed a term sheet for the next round, and it's a good round, and everybody's happy. And I, for example, as a personality, don't celebrate success at all. It took me exactly 3 minutes before I said, okay, do this, do that, we need to send to this, call the other VC, get the, start moving. Do you celebrate?
So real
pause?
stories. First one, when we sold our first company, Sayota, we had pizza for all employees.
And that was it.
And that was pizza with like the cheapest champagne you can buy at 7-Eleven in New York. I still recall that. But at SciSense, we're trying to celebrate a small moment. So when we landed NASDAQ as a client, Aviad, the founder, is sitting here, and I went to McDonald's, and we had 20 nuggets each. It was a beautiful meal. I still have the picture of that excellent dish. Celebrate because there's so many bad moments. It's okay, small, symbolic. People like to give bonuses to people. A thank you letter, handwritten, is worth more than a $5,000 check in most cases. So celebrate, be gracious, say thank you, goes a long way.
Yeah, I agree. I think like one of the hardest things is that you have your eyes on a specific goal for, let's say, like a year or 2 years, and you know that you need to get to like the 1 million in ARR, and everybody tell you that this means that like you'll be able to raise money easily, and you'll get product market fit, and then like 20 minutes after you got there, and so like everybody said like, okay, but you need to get to like 5 million because you can't really get like a good growth round with 1 million.
What's your efficiency?
Yeah. So like every time you get to a specific goal, 20 minutes later, you set the new goal. I'm not very good at celebrating. I think I can do a better job, but I really try not to get the same feeling for my employees. So for them to celebrate, and even if I know 20 minutes later that there's a new goal, I try to postpone these news for my employees at least.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to add. The need for celebration for you is very likely smaller than the need for your employees. And a lot of times you anticipate, you see it coming. Like if we're closing a round, you work so hard on that, right? That when it's published, you're way behind that. Your employees needs to celebrate. They need to celebrate. And if you're not investing in that, you're doing them a disservice. It's not just about you. And I would claim that it's important for every one of us to enjoy those moments, but for them, it's critical. But I think the questions are more interesting than yours. Sorry.
I can't. That's the thing. I want to give them the right to question, but I have so much to talk about. But okay, we'll clear the stage. Bakasha, should we have a...
Quick for the Zoom, how they're going to be asking those questions also.
Ladies and gentlemen, the person in charge, pay for everything here.
And so everyone on Zoom, you see the box over there. I'll be coming around and checking those questions so that we can give you those answers. And then here as well, just a kind of disclaimer. Please try to make your questions relevant to everyone and not really personal long diatribes. Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to hand over the microphone. You guys have one here for the answers. I'm going to give you the heavier one here, and the lighter one here.
English, Hebrew?
English.
Okay, good morning. I have a question about pricing model. 3 questions. But it's like continuous. First of all, if you start about pricing model, you start the company, do you try to do an A/B testing about, okay, I'll charge you one customer, this one, this one, this one. And you spoke about, raising the price. What's the cycle between the raises? And if you change the model of the pricing model, do you change it backwards, or do you do it like for the next customers?
My very quick answer, when you start a company, you A/B test everything, and ABCD test everything, pricing, message, product, everything. So and you go up and down and sideways all the time. So early stage change all the time.
Yeah, a lot of these low-touch companies, it's really, really hard to A/B test pricing. We thought about it many times, but didn't really find a good way to do it. But you can always like have 1 month with a certain pricing model, and if it doesn't work out, to roll back.
I always think there is math and there is art. You need to remember that art is part of that. It's fine. Not everything needs to be, because sometimes you don't have all the data. Sometimes it will be a waste of time to get all the data. In the beginning, if I think you raised the hand on being top down, and in the beginning, if you are top down, when you talk to customers, I would never ask them how much would this product cost in general, but I would ask them, what will you commit to pay if I will deliver this set of features, right? So that is kind of a different discussion, and get them cornered on that. And again, in the beginning, you don't have enough data to do real A/B testing properly. So, and it's fine.
By the way, just tiny addition. I would never ask someone how much we're willing to pay. I would ask them what's the value they're getting. When they tell me the value, I will try and quantify it with them. It's not about price, it's about value.
Check the willingness. That's the idea.
Question. Next one. Sorry.
So, hey, first of all, thank you. It's been amazing, really valuable. My question is, like, if there was a time machine that would bring you to the morning of the day when you decided to found your company, what would you have done differently? Like, from this point, is there anything you would have done differently back then?
Yeah, the first company, we did so many mistakes. We almost killed the company along the way. So it was the kind of like an extreme school for entrepreneurship, building a SaaS company, understanding the product, and etc. So I would do many things differently about how do you structure your product, how do you build a website, how to be like very agile and responsive. So it's a combination of many different things. And we were lucky to do all the mistakes in the first company. So in the second one, we did less, but still many.
So first of all, if there was a time machine, I would not go back, because I would be really afraid of the butterfly effect. And yeah, like I'm happy. But I think two things to your point. The first one is smile more. I'm always like so serious and I don't smile enough. And the second one, specifically tactically on my experience, as I started SkyCare, I had less experience in the sales and marketing operations. And when I talk to people with experience, my lack of confidence hurt the decision making. Like, there are some decisions, if it's let go of a salesperson, or but maybe it's the product, maybe it's you second think yourself. And trust your judgment more is something I would tell myself.
Hi, my name is Lee. I wanted to ask about collecting user feedback. So under what circumstances would you speak with customers? Like, what would you want to learn from them? I mean, would you consider it as a silver bullet? Like, in what cases would you do it, through which channels? So anything about that?
I'll let the others speak, but there are no sequences, like all the time. Find the right engagements, right? If it's bottom up, top down, and so on, we talked about it, but all the time. And it's not a silver bullet, it's just another input.
Yeah, so we took it to another different level. So it's all the time, but we collect many different touch points. So we have quarterly business reviews. We have tickets that we collect from the customers. We have sentiments that the account managers are speaking with their customers. So we collected all the data and we put it in one system that we developed, and we managed to run and build like a descriptive and predictive models that can tell us what is the situation with the customer. Is he healthy? Something changed? What is the trend? What are the features? We're also using Gong. So we collect all the data from before the activation and the acquisition of the customer itself to the post activation, and all the time, so constantly. That's all.
So for me, it's all the time, but it's in bursts, because it's really hard to do something like every day to speak with our customer. So for me, it's much easier every like 2-3 months to speak with like 20 customers in 1 week and to have everything fresh. I would add that I would invest a lot to become a good interviewer of customers. Don't ask them how much will they pay. Don't ask them which features do they want. It's more about like really understanding how's it working today, what's missing, how is it taking decisions about how to buy a new product. So spend a lot around this topic, and also teach your team how to do it well. Like one thing that I invested a lot in is to teach my sales team how to send us good feedback, because all the time it was like, they're missing this feature. Why do they miss it? Is it critical? How much would they pay for it? Are they like the same people within the organization that are going to use it, and so on?
Something you asked about the silver bullet, and I learned that unlike a product where you can be really good at one thing, and that's why you win, when you run a company in scale, someone told me very smart, there are no silver bullets, only lead bullets. And you need many lead bullets to build and run a company, not one thing you do well, because you need all domains.
On that point, just there is, I think Hamilton wrote the 7 powers. If you heard about it, we just strongly recommend learning more about that and kind of looking at all of the discussions in those lenses. I won't elaborate here, but.
Hi, Ziv. You've talked a lot about the ever-changing product market fit, but I think that for most people on this floor, it's the first product market fit who's like the most concern for us. And I would like to say to you, how did you define your first product market fit? Because you certainly had some kind of a goal, whether it was raising your first pre-seed or seed, and how did it impact how you defined what is the fit that you're seeking?
So for us, it was we were on a mission to build a company. We didn't know what we're going to build, like in the first company. And we heard about like the idea of building a VPN can be like very profitable. And we decided to do that. And so we built the system, we built a website, and we started to do marketing. So we had our like first investment was like 5K in Google. And we saw that the first customer arrived like after a day. So that was like the aha moment, the magic, it can work. So this was like the initial moment and the sensing if there is a potential. And we decided to invest more money gradually, understanding that the product is working, there is market, we're getting customers. And this was like the first experience of me and my co-founder.
I don't have a good answer. I would just say like it's really, really hard. So I think most companies that raise their seed and A and B are still far from product market fit, and there's still a potential. So it's a lot about like your gut instinct. It's about how much you believe. Usually it takes a few good years before you get to places you say, wow, this is like really, really working. So even like the state of it. So yeah.
I think that you have different goals to different stages. In the early stage, you have like a theory, a hypothesis, and you're trying to prove it. So essentially, product market fit is about proving this initial hypothesis, which you need to prove to investors or whatever.
So let's not call it product market fit, but definitely, I'm talking about top down, not kind of data driven, try it out and see what sticks. When you go to a prospect and they start nodding in the middle of what you're sharing and say, when can we get it or how much, you know you're there, right? That, you don't need the product, but you refine your message, you understand the problem, you know who to approach, and they get it. And it clicks. You don't just 200 slides to get there. And they want it, they want to buy it. That's when you know, by the way, just like when you sell a product and they tell you it's too expensive, you know you nailed it because they want to buy the product. It's the same moment that there's this click, and then the question is it scalable? Is it a big enough market? That's the next stage. And then is it efficient enough? That's the third leg of the process.
We have a question from Zoom. I'm just going to be asking it. Hello, Zoom. Finding co-founders, was that part of your process of finding product market fit? What are the things that you did in order to find or choose your co-founders when it came to that mission specifically? Those of you that are founders here, all of you.
So in Skycure, my co-founder was Amit, one of the strongest talent I've ever seen in my life. And I was very fortunate because we went back like 10 years. We've been in the defense force together, in Watchfire together, in IBM together. So that was very easy. And I think that we had a very unique relationship and ability to manage the business. I'm supporting a lot of startups. And I think that this is by far one of the biggest challenge. I usually come after they choose, like after they collaborate. But the relationship between the founders is just key. And only like after I started doing that, I realized how hard it is to find that right match. And I would say that this is by far the most important decision you will make as a founder, and spend a lot of time making sure that that's the right thing for you. I've seen a lot of founders really like so frustrated, and that hurts the entire company, right? And it's okay to fight in the beginning. There is no, like Yair and I, we fought a lot in the beginning. We not just debates, like fights, you know, like I was upset of him, he was upset of me. And Yair was really, really good about always talking about it. It was driving me nuts sometimes. Like I was like, let's move on, you know, like, I'm okay. Let's move. And he was like, no, but let's talk about it. And I think that was amazing, because that first year, which we fought much more, built that kind of very, very, very strong baseline. We knew each other so well. When I moved to the US, we would talk almost every day, but I would know exactly what he think about something, even if it was not next to me. And again, the most critical thing in everything you do.
Yeah, I think co-founders, it's changing all the time, like product market fit. You need to work on the relationship. There are many different challenges and different phases for the company, and you need to address that. You need to have a co-founder that will complete you, and less friction, less fights. But I mean, I'm with my co-founder for more than 10 years as well. It's marriage. We need to work on the relationship. Sometimes I'm telling like to my wife, oh wow, I mean, it's like I feel the same, like with her and with him. It's and I need to work on that relationship, and also like in my home. Yeah, she knows that. Yeah, it's she's happy she's on the same level. No, but at the end, yeah, all of us are very happy. And I'm just saying, it's like it's a hard work, and you need to maintain the relationship. It's make or break for your company.
We have two last questions. They've already been delegated to the people that are asking them. So last one here.
Hi. So first of all, thank you for sharing. Like the stories and the information is super interesting. I'm kind of wondering about what worked for you in the past. We've said product-led growth quite a few times, and we mostly focused on the acquisition part and how to get a new customer. But what worked for you with expanding for existing customers? So I guess if you're already building a PLG product, then it's like a basic engine inside the product, but with top down, especially B2B, like what works for you with expanding inside organizations?
Okay, so this is a really good question. I think the tactics matter. So in Skycure, for example, we were top down. We never got real product market fit. We got good sales. And when we built a motion with AT&T that was able, like a go-to-market motion, from reselling perspective as a channel, then when sales started to pick up, and then we were acquired by Symantec. In Symantec, I ran all of endpoint, and then it was like selling a few $1 million a day. So the nuances over there is really different. And in Snyk now, it's much more bottoms up and PLG motion. And in each of those, the growth loops are very different. So I think you are more interested in the PLG one. And so in Snyk, at first it was the movement from freemium to premium, and what we're building on the motion there. And now we are getting our acquired users to activate, to like fix, like we are measuring today F30D, like fixing something in your product within the first 30 days or the last 30 days. And that's kind of the metric that we are. And then we are trying to see what are the things that would improve that, and by that improve the overall revenues. The other aspect as you're growing is that you have a platform play. And then one of the things we are focused on today a lot is attachment of additional solution, additional products to products that are already there. So you have the expansion aspect from a product that we're doing a lot of work on today. But I will have to take it, like there's like very wide question. I will have to take it offline.
Yeah, for us, it's most of our revenue is coming from expansion. It's a land and expand motion. So we land the deals like very small teams that are starting the journey, but then it's the realization and understanding how can you provide more value. So for example, we check in our systems, every different customer, what is the potential of the customer, which features he's using, and then we can create personalization and a different experience. Oh, you didn't get value from adding tunnels. We know that if we will add tunnels, it will be more sticky and there will be like more engagement. So we do that in our QBRs and our like various calls and different touch points, and we see like a high correlation to the ARR and revenue that is being generated by that.
Hi, my question is, you spoke, Ramod, sorry to stand up, you're listening English. Hi, I wonder, you spoke about pricing and features, but I wonder where along the way you revealed an element that did impact your PMF and you were surprised to reveal this element and its relation to PMF.
Probably messaging. That's something that we tested a lot. I think that people are willing to pay something completely different if they think that this product will do X or Y. So this is something that I really invested a lot in. So it was also measuring funnels based on the initial messaging that we use on different ads, and try different messaging with the sales team and so on. But yeah, I think that that's something really important. Both.
The only thing that was not mentioned here is attaching yourself to either regulation or some industry event or a partner. So today there's massive ecosystems. AWS is an ecosystem. Snowflake meteoric rise, literally meteoric rise, creates an event. Lots of regulations coming, GDPR, data related. Each one of those waves, if you can attach and show how you're related to it and help people with that event, usually you can accelerate your product market fit acceptance.
Does it matter whether it's cultural or political or technological or
whatever is on your customer's mind? They are worried about a regulation. They are worried about moving to the cloud. They are worried about the attack Uber had yesterday. If you can attach yourself to one of those events they're worried about, it will help.
I want to thank everyone for coming, and thank you so much to our panelists for being here and joining us today. Every one of you has my email, so if you have additional questions that you want to send to any of the panelists or to Iran or anyone from the Entree team, shoot me an email. I'll make sure that they get to the right places, you get the right answers. Still some snacks outside. Go ahead, mingle, mix. And Entree folks, raise your hand one more time. If you want to speak to Entree folks, find them. Awesome. Thank you.